Hey guys, today on Quick Tips I have 3 words for you. Cable management.
Quick tips, quick tips, quick tips, quick tips.
Oh hey, Andrew here with Friffy Films, and today on Quick Tips we're going to go over our top 3 tips on wrapping up cables. This doesn't just have to be for filmmakers, I'm talking to the musicians out there, audio professionals, even the typical at-home consumer. Do you always find that your cables don't last very long? Do you pull out your cables only to discover a rat's nest of a mess, all tangled and twisted up? Are you embarrassed by this in front of clients or at gigs? Well, let's fix this. Did you know that there is a right and a wrong way to wrap up cables? Do you do this? Or this? Please stop. The main reason behind damaged, unusable cables and cables that are all knotted and twisted up is probably because of the way you're wrapping it up. So today we're going to look at correcting that. You can see why wrapping up cables incorrectly over time can really start to twist wires on the inside, start to fray and break the wires, and also create unwanted bumps and irregularities in your cables, making them unable to pass signals, rendering them useless for their very specific and only purpose. Which brings me to tip number 1. Your cables need to be trained.
Okay, give me your paw. Give me your paw.
By wrapping them up and twisting them incorrectly, that's basically saying, hey wire, twist up like this all crazy next time and eventually break. You can fix old messy cables as well as start to train a brand new cable. Start by nicely laying out the cable of your choosing. Wiggle, shimmy, and adjust as you go to try to get it sort of to its, I don't know, let's call it the natural wrap state. Try to smooth out the bumps and twists and things. Don't pull on it too hard when correcting, as this can also damage the wires inside. That's what she said. You can even let this sit laid out straight for a while and sort of let gravity do its thing. This sort of lets the cable unwind and relax for a little. So before wrapping, you just want to be mindful that the cable needs to be trained and conditioned to lay out and wrap in its natural fashion. This will make the life of the cable much longer and much more manageable for you when using the cables. Plus, if you can easily just throw a cable out and you're ready to plug in and go with no twists or kinks, you look like a freaking boss. Tip number 2 is the over-under method. Watch what happens when you just simply roll a cable in one direction. When you let it drop, it's completely twisted and coiled and it needs to kind of unwind itself. Now let's watch it drop when it's wrapped correctly. Look, no twists, no coils. This is what will make your cables last longer and prevent them from twisting so much that the wires eventually break. Even your phone charging cables that never work after like 3 uses, this is why. The over-under method works with BNC cables, DMX, XLR, extension cords, etc. I've seen different people do this slightly different ways, but in the end, if you're achieving the same result, you should be good to go. Some people are left-handed, some people are right-handed. I happen to be left-handed, but I'm going to try to show you both ways. Start by holding the cable in your hand just before the end of the cable with your palm facing down. Slide down and smooth out the cable with your other hand and begin your first loop. Let's start with an over loop. You can begin to feel it out and let it naturally loop over by rolling the cable a little between your index finger, middle finger, and thumb inwards towards your body. Then bring both hands together. Notice both palms are sort of facing down. Grab a hold of the loop in your loop hand, then slide your other hand down the cable, straightening it out, getting it ready for the under loop. Between the fingertips this time, roll outwards away from your body and start to create its natural under loop. Then bring both hands together. The under loop is sort of tucked behind when you're grabbing the under loop with your loop hand. Then back to the over loop. Just repeat the same steps, then to the under. Remember, if it needs some help, you can always gently roll the cable between your fingertips, straightening the cable out as you go. Adjust the length and size of the loops if necessary, and repeat. The motion really is about rolling in between your fingertips. For larger wires, you want to make larger loops, and for smaller wires, you want to make smaller loops. I try to make it so the 2 ends of the cable end up pretty close together. You can again sort of wiggle, shimmy, and adjust the cable as you go to try to get nice even loops. Though be mindful not to disrupt the cable's natural wrap. You'll eventually get the hang of it and feel that it wants to just kind of naturally go that way, and you really don't have to force it. And now I'll just go through these same steps and repeat it with a couple different kinds of cables just so you can see it a few times. Now you're able to just quickly pull out or throw out your cable and plug in and go with no bends, twists, or kinks. The way you pull the cable out is also important. You want to throw the cable out with the end that you looped last, so basically it's just a reversal of what you just did. Just be mindful of which way you pull it out so you don't take the time to wrap it up all nice and neat and then you end up creating knots anyway. Which brings me to tip number 3, cable wraps. You can get some super cheap Velcro wraps, these little guys. My preference is Home Depot. A roll of like 50 of these is like $5, so not very expensive at all. I actually prefer these cheap little Velcro ones over some of the other ones that are out there. They are completely Velcro, so no problems with sticking. They work well and last a long time. They're even so cheap that you can just have a roll on hand and replace them when necessary. There's sort of a rough and a smooth Velcro side, and I like to keep the smooth side on the outside so it feels nice on your little fingies. There is a wide wider end with a cutout slot, pop out the cutout, and put the end of the wrap through the slot and secure to one end of the cable. I put them on the side of the cable I start my wrap from, and that way everything is nice and consistent and I always know which way to throw my cables out. And yes, I even put them on and wrap up my cell phone cables properly like a nerd. But you know what? They last forever. The only downside is everyone you know will be asking to borrow your charging cables because theirs will be broken all the time, and you know how to properly wrap them up now. Alright guys, that was our 3 tips on cable management. I hope you found them to be useful. If you can show up to a set or a sound gig and show them you at least know how to wrap up a cable properly, you should be in good shape. It's definitely something that takes a lot of practice and something that comes more natural, smoother, and faster over time. Actually, after a gig or a shoot, I find it to be quite cathartic and satisfying to unplug everything and sort of neatly wrap everything back up and put it in its place when everything's done. But I won't bore you with my problems. Anyway, thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe, and we hope to see you again on our next episode of Quick Tips. Peace.